Hello guys, and welcome back to Nate Sports Talk. Today we're going to be comparing the treble sides of 98-99 Manchester United and 22-23 Manchester City. We're not going to be getting into the cheating scandal that Man City are accused of. We're just going to be looking at the football played on the pitch by both teams, judging which team is better based on football alone. Obviously, Manchester United did it first, and when you do something first, it holds more value. Anytime you do something first, regardless of what it is, like let's say you're the first to go to college in your family, that holds more value than the person who does it second. So they do have that in their back pocket that they were the first team to do it. Uh, Looking at their achievements, they both achieved the same things. Both won a Premier League, both won a FA Cup, and both won a Champions League. Three very good achievements. When we look at the treble winning side of Liverpool, uh, no one really cares because they didn't win any major trophies. So there's nothing to differentiate them from that. They all won the major trophies. So we're going to have to dig in a little bit deeper. Um, Manchester United, they won their Premier League on the last day. It took them a last-minute goal against Tottenham Hotspur to get them over the line and beat out an Arsenal team, a very good Arsenal team at that. They only won the league with 79 points. Something with Manchester City that they do hold is that they won the league with 10 more points and games to spare. With Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, they have redefined the Premier League. It is no longer acceptable to win the league with low 80s, high 70-point tallies. You have to have 89, 90, somewhere in that ballpark. Even 99 in cases isn't enough to win the league when you're going up against Man City. And that is something that I would say defines the Manchester City treble. Winning the league with 10 more points and with games in hand is something that gives Man City a definitive edge in that regard. The win rate of Manchester United for their overall season was only 58%. They won their games 50% of the times when they played, compared to Manchester City, who won 85% of the games that they played in. Huge, huge difference between the two teams. Not even something that can be debated. Manchester City are by far the more superior team when it comes to winning games. They go out there and get the job done. They don't draw. They don't lose. They go out there and get wins. Manchester United only had 36 wins for the season, whereas Man City had 50 wins. 50 wins in a season is crazy. When they only played 60. They played 60 games and won 50. 51, sorry. This doesn't include the Inter game. So it's 51 games that they've won out of 60 games. 9 games in a whole season that they've dropped points in. Unbelievable stuff. Manchester United drew 22 games, which isn't bad because anytime you gain a point is pretty good. But when you're comparing it to Manchester City, draws are unacceptable for them. That's something that isn't good enough for them. And they only had 3 draws in the whole season. This leads to losses. Manchester United had less losses with only 4, something that they can hold over Manchester City, who had 6. It was tough to beat both teams, but obviously it was tougher to beat Manchester United, who only lost 4 games in an entire season, which honestly is pretty ridiculous. Something that people bring up, homegrown players, homegrown starters for Manchester United. I came up with 4. I have Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, Nicky Butt, and David Beckham. 4 guys who were pretty much in the starting 11 every single game. Those were the main guys in the Manchester United squad. Man City also have 4 homegrown players that I've come up with who were big parts in their starting 11. First off with Jack Grealish. He's been massive for them this season. He's turned around his career. Was a guy who looked like he was going to be another 100 mil flop. Was he worth 100 mil? Probably not, but he's not a flop anymore like we originally thought. John Stones, we all know the qualities that he's had. Kyle Walker, if you don't want to count him as a main starter, I can understand that. But I think that he was a stonewall for them at the beginning of the season, and then he slowly got phased out towards the end of the season. So I personally would count him. Nathan Ake, yes, he wasn't born in England or in Great Britain, but he does count as he was developed in the, Chelsea Academy. Now, with Manchester United, you can look at and say that these are guys that they brought up through the academy. They're their guys. And Man City, they bought those guys in and didn't develop them. But honestly, that's not an argument. That shouldn't be an argument to justify one team being better. We have plenty of teams where, look at Bayern, they don't prioritize youth development. Are we going to discount Real Madrid's 14 Champions Leagues because they don't prioritize youth academy development? They go out and get their stars instead of growing them. Man City have taken that route of Real Madrid, going out and get the big name players instead of developing them. And I don't think that should be something that should be held against Man City. But I can also understand why Man U fans would hold on to that, because you can build an affinity with those players as they are yours. Man U beat Bayern in the UCL. They had a tougher UCL final, if you want to count that for Man U, because City only played Inter. But I would then argue that the road to the final was way tougher for City. Anytime you have to play Real Madrid in your road to the final, it's not easy. They're 14-time European champions for a reason. So if you want to say Man U have the edge on City by playing a tougher team in the final and had to get late goals by sharing them and Solskjaer, so be it. You can count that for them. But I would count the road to the final being way harder for City than it was for Manchester United. Manchester United also finished only second in their group. They drew 3 or 4 games, I think it was. Can't really remember. But City finished top and dominated their group, something that Man U were not able to do. And when you're comparing teams so closely, you have to scrutinize every single detail. That's something I give to City. When you're a treble winning side, you should be dominant. You should impose that dominance every single game, and that's what Man City did, in my opinion. Finally, we're going to look at net spend. Net spend for Manchester United at the time was 41 million euros. Or pounds, sorry. And trying to calculate that into today's terms, I came up with a number that would be 76,298,643 pounds. That's a lot of money. The narrative that Man U didn't spend a lot of money, I think, is flawed by looking at today's market value. But when you judge money from 98-99, that was a ton of money that they were spending. They didn't just, find guys, pick guys out from the crowd like people would think and give them a Manchester United shirt and tell them, here, ball up. That's not what they did. They went out and got the big name stars. Guys, if they didn't have an academy player in their place, they would go out and get a player who could fill those shoes for them. City actually profited this transfer window with 11.67 million pounds. Sorry. I know there's a lot more into it. It's a lot deeper than that. But like I said, I'm only looking at this season's numbers. I'm not looking at years prior to that, because that doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If you want to bring it up, fine, so be it. But when you look at everything that I've explained to you, I personally would say the City's treble is much, much better than Manchester United. Man City were a dominant team. You didn't want to play them. You knew that when you played them, you were going to lose. You would be lucky to get a draw against them. Whereas Manchester United, I felt like, yes, a win was going to be hard, but you knew maybe we could eke out a draw. maybe a draw would be good enough to get us through. It worked. City, you had to play your A game. Otherwise, you weren't going home with any points. And even an A game would still get you beat by this City team. Look at Inter in the Champions League final. They played as good as they could, and it just wasn't meant to be. Now, yes, I wasn't old enough to watch the 98-99 Manchester United treble. Just like most of you guys who are probably watching this weren't old enough to watch it. So I don't know as much as I probably would if I lived it. But based on what I've told you guys, I would have to say City's treble is better. It's just more dominant than Manchester United's. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Whose treble do you think is better? 98-99 Manchester United or 22-23 Manchester City? I hope you guys have a good one. Bye.